Hello, 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 everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So I was originally going to do this live privately. You know what? Let me stop. Let me start over. First of all, hello. And for those who may not know me, my name is A'Tondra Vinchealle. I am the keeper of the Mermaid's wisdom. Hey there, Britt. I'm the keeper of the Mermaid's wisdom. I am your feminine wellness educator and guide. Hey there, Lolita. How are you? Thank you for joining me this evening. I create. Hey, sis. How are you, Nicole? I create and open space for women to reclaim our time, our bodies, and our feminine essence. If you've been following me for a while, that's probably something different than what you were used to hearing me say and used to hearing me introduce myself. But we all grow with time, right? So originally I was going to do this video privately in my private incubator group, the Sisters of the Mermaid's Lair. And I just decided to do it on my public page because I think it's important and it's something that I wanted to share with everybody. Hey there, Sarah. How are you? Hey, Ajax. Thank you for joining me this evening. Something that I wanted to share with everybody, and it's about integration and recalibration. And what happens when you receive new information and you receive activation. Some people like to call it up-leveling, whatever your terminology of choice is. But when you receive that type of information and then you immediately try to go back to business as usual. And I want to talk about why that is probably not the best way for you to do that. Probably not the best way for you to really integrate what you've learned. So let me go ahead and get into what I'm trying to say. So last week, I went to a retreat. I went to the Luminosity retreat. It was a weekend retreat for women. It was run by Sri Namaste Moore, and her husband, Baba Richard Moore, came in on the last day. And I was in Austin from Thursday through Monday morning because I left like Monday morning. And during this time, during this retreat, I received so much. Much of it I'm not even really released to share right now. But I received so much in terms of transformation, so much in terms of education, so much in terms of feminine activation, and just being activated in places and spaces within myself that I didn't even know existed. Hey there, Janine. How are you? Thank you for joining me this evening. And I received so much. I was trained in a new healing modality, just so much. It was so rich and so deep and so impactful and so transformative and so powerful that with the exception of the few times that I spoke to my husband on my drive back, I drove back in silence. So with the exception of the few times that my husband and I were on the phone with each other, I literally drove back in silence. Like, that's how deep and how rich and how transformative this retreat was. And if you have ever been away from people who love you for any bit of time, right? So if you don't know me, I have a husband, I have 4 children. And so when you are away from people you love and people who love you, what happens is when you get back home, everybody immediately wants your time. Right? Like everybody immediately wants your time. Hey there, Percy. Hey there, Israel. Thank you for joining me this evening. Everybody immediately wants your time. And as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, obviously I'm not going to deny them my time, right? Like I'm not gonna come home and be like, oh my God, I'm so deep now. Like, you can't talk to me. Right? Like, I know you want to spend time with mommy, but I'm so deep right now that, sorry, you can't talk to me because I'm just way deep right now. Like, I'm just so deep, right? Like you can't do that. Or at least I hope you wouldn't do that. Hey there, Ms. Gwen. Hey there, Trina. Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you wouldn't do that, right? And so what happened was, hey there, Teresa. What happened was when I drove in silence and I knew that I had received so much, but for some reason in the back of my mind, I still thought that when I got back home to Houston, I would immediately jump back into business as usual. And so what happened was when I got home, obviously you're responding to text messages and you're responding to emails and you're responding to inbox messages. And I immediately started responding to messages and I immediately started accepting appointments. Sure, I can jump on that call. Yeah, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. And, today is Tuesday. I got back yesterday. And I had made all of these different plans. Like, I'm going to do this, and this. And what ended up happening today was that in all of my good intention to do all of the things, right? And make all the appointments and catch up with everybody in it, it didn't work out that way. Partially because there were some things for my children that I had to take care of that took priority, obviously. But then when I wasn't doing those things and I was in my alone time, I was realizing that I was still processing everything. And that although I had received all of this activation and all of this education and all of this just wisdom and esoteric knowledge and, all of these new things and tools and modalities, I still had to allow time for all of that to integrate. And what does that mean? That means that I had to allow additional time for my meditation. I had to allow additional time for my journaling. I had to allow additional time for my reflecting. I had to allow additional time for me to really process what it was that I had received. And so understanding that I'm trying to do this in the middle of, hey, mommy, I want to play. Hey, mommy, I want to do this. So you've got all of these different things. And then at the same time, I still have to integrate so that I can recalibrate what a new normal, what this new life is going to look like for me. And so I realized that a lot of what I was doing outside of the things that I was doing for my family, so outside of caring for my husband and outside of caring for my children, a lot of what I was doing was distracting me from being able to integrate. And so because of that, there were a lot of phone calls today that went unanswered. There were a lot of text messages today that went unanswered. And I thought about all of the different times that I would watch something. Maybe it was a business training. Maybe it was a spiritual training. Maybe it was an energetic training. I would watch something, or I would listen to something, and I would read a book, or I would have a conversation. And I started to think about all of the times where I would receive all of this knowledge and then immediately hop on the computer, or immediately hop on the phone, or immediately hop on, jump into something else, right? So you watch the video, you listen to the audio, you read the book, you watch the Facebook live transmission, like whatever your modality of choice is for receiving information, whether this is for your personal life, whether this is for your spiritual life, whether this is for your business, we take in information. And then what happens is, as soon as the video is over, or as soon as the audio is over, or as soon as you have closed the book, then you immediately jump back into business as usual. And then you wonder why none of what you learn and none of what you receive actually sticks with you. Hey there, Amanda, how are you? Right? You go to the retreat, you go to the conference, and I see this happen a lot of times in business, right? We'll go to these conferences and you get all of this information, and you get all these tools, and you get all this stuff. And then as soon as you get back home, or for some of us, as soon as you get back to your hotel room, you immediately jump back into what was normal business for you. When the reality is when you receive this new information, and you receive these new tools, you receive this, you have to give yourself time for that to integrate. Now, what does this mean? This doesn't mean, like I said earlier at the beginning of the broadcast, right? Like when I got home, I didn't tell my children and my husband, like, oh my God, I'm so deep, like thou shalt not touch me. I am so deep. I am integrating at this time. Please don't touch me during my integration time. Like, no, like I didn't do that. But what I did have to do was I did have to not answer some phone calls. I did have to not answer some text messages. I did have to not, I had to catch myself actually, because I was getting back into the habit of scrolling on Facebook, to find conversation. And so I had to not respond to some Facebook posts. I had to not respond to some emails. I had to not respond to some voice messages. And you have to get in a space where you are comfortable with doing that, because when people are used to having ready access to you, and then they don't have that immediate access to you, there is a sense of guilt that's associated with that, or this sense of urgency, like, oh my God, I got to return that call. Like, she's called 3 times. Oh my God, like, they emailed me like 5 times. Like, I got to return. Actually, you don't. You don't have to return that, Sri Namaste and Baba Richard did a broadcast this morning about how you don't really have to do anything, right? Like, it's not anything that you have to do. And so my situation right now may be different. And I'm doing this. I'm going to share this in my private group as well, because I'm actually going to not be available for the rest of the week. With the exception of one thing, because I was asked to be a model tomorrow for a makeup artist for Mark Harvey here in Houston. And that was something that we had already talked about prior to me going to Austin. So I will do that. And then so for the purposes of being the model and all of that, I will be posting, you know, the before and after pictures and the tags and all of that kind of stuff. So I will be doing that. But other than that, for the next few days, I'm just not going to be available. I'm not going to be available because what I had to realize this evening was that in order for me to be able to fully recalibrate what this new normal is going to look like for me, then I have to make the time to integrate the new knowledge that I have. And so what that means is, you know, outside of my immediate household, right? Because they don't deserve to like not get my time because, you know, I'm integrating, right? Like that's just wrong. You know, outside of that, every other, you know, because what was happening is that every time I returned a phone call or I sent a text message, it was like something was pulling at me. Like, you need to come back in. You need to come back in. And it was pulling at me so much so that by the time I did sit down and get back in and get into, I literally was out of it for like 2.5 hours. Like I was in meditation for 2.5 hours. And that was a great thing. Don't get me wrong. But it goes to show that because I did not take the time that was necessary and because I allowed myself, hey there, Aunt Kim. Hey, Kimberly. Hey, Tina. Thank you for joining me this evening. Because I allowed myself to have my energy taken up in so many other different ways today that the pull was so strong that I had to dedicate that 2.5 hours. And so when I look at my life and I look at my lifestyle and I say, okay, is it really practical for me to do that on a daily basis? It may be on some days, it may not be on other days, right? But hey there, Loretta, thank you. So it may be on some days, it may not be on other days, but the bottom line is I have to take that time to integrate. And so I want to encourage you, if as you're, you know, one of my favorite people to watch from time to time is you know, I love watching obviously Sri Namaste Moore and Baba Richard, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk and you know, and Christy Jackson, that's for business and all of that. Like, we do this so much. And I think social media has really put us at a disadvantage when it comes to this, because there's so much content coming at us back to back to back to back to back, that as soon as you finish watching one piece, like as soon as you receive one thing, when you swipe off of that, there's like 10 other things for you to be able to watch. And so nobody takes the time. You know, you'll watch a video by Christy Jackson or Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins or Les Brown or Oprah or Jim Carrey or, you know, any of these other people. You'll watch all of this wonderful stuff. And then as soon as the video is over, you are on to the next post. And you have not even given yourself an opportunity to integrate what it is that you have received. All integrations, all transmissions don't necessarily come through a retreat. A lot of you receive multiple transmissions throughout the week. For business, for your relationships, for your energy, your spirit. Like, a lot of you receive multiple transmissions during the week and they never integrate, because as soon as you finish with the audio or the video or the book or whatever, you immediately move on to the next thing. And it happens so much in business, because people will be like, oh, I went to that conference, it didn't work. I read all Gary Vaynerchuk's books, none of that stuff worked. I did this, and this. I bought all Christy Jackson's programs. None of that stuff worked. No, it's not that none of it worked. It's that as soon as you finished reading it, you thought you had it. And what you have to understand is just because you read the book, it doesn't mean that you have it. Just because you listen to the audio, it doesn't mean that you have it. Just because you watch the video, it doesn't mean that you have it. There's a real phenomenon taking place right now, and there's a conversation that's being had amongst English professors. English professors and professors who teach in the writing arts. And the conversation is that this text message society that we are living in is causing a situation where college students are coming in and they don't read the text anymore. They skim it. And then when it's time to write the paper, because they're so used to skimming and writing in shorthand code, the papers that are being turned in at the college level from a lot of students are practically deplorable. Because we have this idea that if I watch the video or if I read the book, I have it. And nobody takes the time anymore to sit with it. Right? So when I got done with my meditation, I had to catch myself. Because where my altar is, it's in the living room. So the TV is right there. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put on headphones or something like that. And so when I came out of meditation, one of my favorite cartoons was on the TV. And I had to stop myself from immediately moving from, setting my altar back up into watching this cartoon. Right? And what happens is when we get this information, we don't sit with it anymore. You don't sit and let it sit in you and sit with you. Hey there, Taha. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I mispronounce it. I'm very particular about pronouncing people's names correctly because I believe that there is an energy associated with your name. And so I always do my absolute best with respect to pronounce people's names properly. So I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Hey there, Chanel. Okay. So yeah. So that's it. So yeah, I'm going to be unavailable. I will answer when it is absolutely necessary. Good evening. And I'll respond if it's absolutely necessary. But for those of you who watch this video, I encourage you to do the same thing. Try it sometime. Think about some of your favorite people that you like to watch. Like I said, and this is really applicable in business, right? Because a lot of people watch like business videos and listen to audios and things like that on YouTube. Try it. Watch whoever it is that you like to watch or listen to or read from. And then when it's done, just sit with it. Yep. Just sit with it. And I'm not saying if this is your first time like doing this, I'm not saying like all of a sudden like you have to sit with it for 3 hours and allow it to soak into you and integrate with you. Like, I'm not asking you to do that, right? But like sit with it for like 2 minutes. 3 minutes. If you can, 5 minutes. Just sit with it. And see what happens. Try that. Okay? So I am out of here. I love you all. And I wish you nothing but the absolute most love and joy and peace and passion and pleasure and grace and ease and flow that you can even receive, you know. I wish all of that for you. Oh, you're welcome. Okay. I love you all. Bye-bye. Good night.